Filmmaker Julian Kluk is back with a follow-up to his wildly successful documentary, The Indoctrination Theory, a thought-provoking and earnest investigation into the ending of the controversial video game Mass Effect 3. Julian is here today to talk about his new documentary and give his take on the recent DLC released for Mass Effect 3 and if it affects the theory as a whole. Thanks for talking to me again, Julian. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on again.
Absolutely. Now, just to rehash, what exactly is the indoctrination theory in relation to Mass Effect 3?
Well, just a quick recap of that. Basically, the indoctrination theory states that what we see at the end of the game isn't actually happening, but is rather an attempt at the main antagonists of the series to try and do a version of a mind control on the main character, and in effect make them win and end the game in their favor, versus having him beat it and then have an ending that we have yet to receive.
Now, you were very successful with your original investigation, dubbed simply the Indoctrination Theory Documentary. Why give it a second go? Why create a part two?
Well, as it turned out, there was actually a lot of new information that had surfaced since the first one came out. There were a few things I noticed. There were some things that some people messaged me with. The BioWare forums had some new stuff. And there were some things that I left out intentionally that I felt needed or deserved a second look. So that's why I felt there was a second one needed. And it actually ended up being 10 minutes longer than the first, to my surprise.
Is there any, without giving it away, because obviously we want people to see the second one, what are some of the key points that you think will entice viewers to watch the Indoctrination Theory Documentary Part 2?
Well, the biggest one to me is it's kind of an extra look at what I said in the first one about how Shepard is surviving. This is something that still is very, what's the word I'm looking for? It's very interesting because even with the Extended Cut DLC, it has not yet been explained. And even though the Extended Cut DLC just came out a few days ago, Mike Gamble has already alluded to the Destroy ending and the fact that he survives, but hasn't actually provided an answer. So I think a good reason for people to watch it is to mainly, if for nothing else at all, to at least understand that there's no reason for Shepard to survive at the end of the Destroy option. I give a whole list in the second one, which I did not do in the first one, of things that he should have died from or perished from, and how it makes no sense for that to be happening if this was a real-life situation. And that, again, still fails to get answered with the Extended Cut DLC, and it's something that is causing a lot of the problems going on since the Extended Cut DLC was released. But again, there's a few other things, excuse me, that have been included as well.
Now, Part 2, for the fans, how exactly have they received it so far? Because it has been out for a few days. What is the initial response?
It's actually been just as positive as the other ones. We've already gotten close to 20,000 views since it came out this Sunday, which is phenomenal. I'm very excited about that. Again, it's been pretty much the same response as the first one. People just didn't think there could be just as good of a second one. I've been getting a lot of stuff like that. They didn't think it was going to be, that I would be able to pull off another, I guess in their minds, good video. So I'm proud to be able to say that I made one. So it's just been generally positive, even with the Extended Cut DLC, so I'm very pleased with it.
That's good. Now, we touched on it a little bit. Big news this week is the release of the Mass Effect 3 Extended Cut DLC. It's a massive package that adds additional videos, dialogue, and promises to answer a lot of the open-ended questions in Mass Effect. Have you had a chance to play it, and what is your overall kind of experience with the DLC?
Oh yeah, I've played it.
Yeah.
And every possible ending that I haven't played, I've at least read it or watched the video for it. I mean, so to me, it's a very conflicting situation that's very hard to explain without further advancements coming from BioWare. So to me, my initial response to it was that it's kind of the same bad ending with sprinkles now. Completely aside from the indoctrination theory, not even getting into that at the moment,
just your overall experiences in terms of entertainment.
Experience. If you're going to take it at face value, it's still just a very poor ending. With now, it's just got an extra cutscene with literally a picture montage at the very end, which you wouldn't think that a 5-year series would end with a picture montage, but that's what happened. So it's really, in my opinion, a bad ending plus sprinkles. And the fans have been literally divided right down the middle, 50-50. Some of them love it, some of them hate it. So it's been creating quite a bit of attention among the fan base.
Absolutely. Now, again, I'm talking to Julian Kluk, the creator of the Indoctrination Theory Documentary. He just recently released the second part of that documentary, and we're talking today about Mass Effect 3, the extended cut DLC. Now, in terms of the Indoctrination Theory, in relation to the extended cut DLC, a lot of fans believe the Indoctrination Theory really gave birth because of the ambiguity of the endings, because there wasn't concrete answers. Does this new DLC give concrete answers, and how does it affect the theory in general?
It does and it doesn't, and that's the problem that I wanted to get into.
Mm-hmm.
It's strange because you have on the one hand, they, in my opinion, and a lot of the fans' opinions, added in 3 or 4 pretty concrete pieces of evidence that support the theory that a lot of people looked over or missed. And it's funny because I've gotten a lot of people saying, oh, the indoctrination theory is busted, the whole EC DLC disproved it, when in fact they've actually produced more evidence within the EC DLC that had it been present prior, a lot more people would have believed it to begin with. But on the same other side of the coin, I mean, it's a problem because the Extended Cut DLC was supposed to be the end-all, be-all of Mass Effect 3, and yet if they're alluding that there's more to it, how can that be so if they were not planning on doing anything else? That's sort of the conundrum that's been going on, because on the one side, again, they've been producing some sorts of evidence that actually seems pretty irrefutable. Mm-hmm. And then on the other side, they were saying that this was going to be definitive. We're going to know 100%. By the end of this, and yet it's only produced more questions. So that's basically been the problem.
What are some of the facts that you believe are, like you said, the irrefutable truths that support the indoctrination theory? You don't have to go, really in depth because I imagine it involves a lot of analysis, but just on face value, for those who have played it and they'll say, oh yeah, I remember that part, and see how it fits in, sort of thing.
One is when Shepard is running down the hill. Harbinger hits Shepard with the laser, as we all know, but now they've added in a new line for Harbinger right when he hits him, and he actually muddles a phrase that sounds like "one of us." Like, that's quite literally what he's saying, as if he's trying to indoctrinate him. And it's not like a wishy-washy sound. It's kind of on the borderline. It's obviously a phrase. It definitely sounds like "one of us," but it's very robotic and Reaper-like. So it's probably going to end up being the great cause of controversy, but they added in a new sound, and that's the biggest thing, right when he said that. So why would they do that if they were not trying to allude to something? I mean, they had a very short amount of time to work on this DLC, and yet they're throwing clues like that. So moving on from that, that's just like number one. As the second one, that is a big one, when Shepard actually goes up the beam then, he eventually makes it to the beam, gets aboard the Citadel. Now they have a new scene where he's quite literally flying out of the warp beam, hitting the ground, and then laying there for a second. After he's laying there for a second, he gets sort of a neural shock, so to speak, and you actually hear a Reaper growl in the background, like he just got shooken to wake up, or as if his heart back on London is still fighting, sort of something like that. It's hard to explain in words. It's something that you would have to see and listen to.
I think I kind of know what you're getting at here. That it's kind of a glimpse of the reality versus this artificial reality that you believe the Reapers are putting within his mind, correct? Something around there?
Exactly. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Because it's just odd. If it was just a normal shock and he just, kind of had a little shake, that would be fine. But it's the fact that they actually added in a Reaper, I don't want to say scream, but a Reaper growl right when he does it. So it's very strange. And so is the way that he shakes. But moving on, that's still not the best one. We've got enhanced oily shadows and whispers while we're talking to the elusive man and Anderson. And after that, in the decision chamber room, this is quite possibly the biggest one. They've added a new ending called the Refusal ending. Effectively, it is the choice where Shepard doesn't make a choice. You have the option of either through dialogue or quite literally shooting your weapon at the Star Child after the dialogue is over to trigger this event. And what happens is Shepard basically does not choose any of the answers. He does not want to go with any of them, which a lot of people think is actually a metaphor from BioWare directly to the fans who didn't like the original ending. And what happens is everybody dies, quite literally. The cycles continue. You lose, everyone loses, and it ends with a VI of Liara talking to a new cycle, trying to warn them about it, and that's how it ends. But what's interesting about this ending, and the reason that it's such a strong piece of evidence, is because right when Shepard declines to choose any of the answers, the Star Child's voice actually changes and goes into a Reaper voice, and he says the words, "So be it." So why? That just raises so many questions. Like, why would they do that unless they were trying to prove the indoctrination theory? Because if you're giving the Star Child a Reaper voice, it's effectively saying that he is a Reaper, and therefore we cannot trust him, and therefore we can't trust his recommendations of control or synthesis, and therefore the destroy ending is the only real answer, and therefore we still don't have the real ending.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why this is becoming such a conundrum. That's why the other thing, or the refusal ending, is such a big proponent of the new evidence, because they literally just gave him a Reaper voice for that one phrase, and a lot of people believe it's Shepard refusing to go with any of the choices, and so he more or less dies, because what a lot of people believe is that Harbinger held back when he hit him with the laser. So he more or less has the option of killing him, but if he picks Destroy, it's more or less beating the Reapers at their own game, whereas Refusal is kind of just giving up hope, and that's why Shepard dies at the end. Again, just to recap, basically the theory is now saying that they literally gave the Star Child a Reaper voice when he says, so be it, and therefore you can't trust him, and that's the ball continues to roll. So.
But my question to you then is, based on the fact that we know what the extended outcome is of the other endings, and we do see, especially the controlled synthesis ending, you do see resolutions in some aspect in terms of Reapers helping out and rebuilding the Mass Effect relays, the Krogans continuing to live in various different things. Do you say then that these realities are not considered actually valid in the game world because of the fact in the Refusal ending, the Star Child is identified as a Reaper? Is that kind of where you're going with? I just want to make sure I got a grasp of that.
Sort of. Well, what the theory is saying is that these two, just like we said before the Extended Cut DLC came out, that Control and the synthesis endings that we get are not actually happening, but rather a figment of Shepard's imagination, believing that he made the right choice. And that is evidenced by the fact that both the Elusive Man and Saren, the Elusive Man who chose Control and Saren who previously chose synthesis in the first game, both of them adamantly believed that they made the right decision. They believed that they were doing something positive, and that's why a lot of people believe that Shepard is naturally going to believe that he's making the right choice as well, regardless of the choice that he actually makes. So even with this Extended Cut DLC, we still believe that those two choices are not actually happening, and that the only real scene that we see that is actually happening is Shepard breathing after the Destroy ending. That's the only reality that we currently believe is actually happening.
Now, do you think that kind of perspective might be a little bit difficult for some fans to swallow, just because BioWare literally created these alternative scenes, these more comprehensive endings, but based on your opinion, it was just essentially another caveat, another feign to really explain a greater ending? Could that be something that, as a fan, might be difficult to accept at this point?
It has been. A lot of people have had trouble accepting that, and a lot of people genuinely like the control and synthesis options, and that's all power to them. They've got their own opinions just like we do. So, I mean, it's definitely a hard pill to swallow, and that's the conundrum, like I said, because they're trying to appeal to both indoctrination theorists and people who genuinely like the original endings, and that's creating this level of tension, because no one knows who's right, and it's up to BioWare to say who's right, when they said that we were supposed to know with this Extended Cut DLC. So that's more or less the problem. Like, exactly why would they put in all these new cutscenes for those specific endings if they weren't going to follow through with their original ideas? But we can see that that's not happening because of the fact that they put in all these extra stuff.
Yeah, they're not following through their original plan because of the response to that. So, essentially, I remember in our last interview, you mentioned that with the Extended Cut DLC, it would kind of be an answer when BioWare finally says yes or no, if the indoctrination theory is real, give a little credence. And at this point, they still haven't done that. So I ask you now, where does the theory go from here? Because, like you said, the Extended Cut DLC in a lot of ways opens a lot of questions and doesn't give you that clarity that I would assume many of the theorists are looking for. So what do you do now, essentially?
Well, pretty much that's again the problem. I say wait and see, because it did take them a month before they even announced the Extended Cut DLC to begin with, and believe it or not, even though it just released on Tuesday in America, it's pretty much, they've already been throwing subtle clues. There's already been Twitter feeds by Jessica Merzin and Mike Gamble already. The first one I can think of is Jessica Merzin saying that there will be more DLC, but they cannot say whether or not it's going to be relevant to the ending. But if this was originally supposed to be the final, end-all, be-all ending, why can they not say now, here you go, are you happy now? No, there's not going to be any more ending DLC if they weren't planning anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So they're already playing games, and they're seeming like they're alluding to something. Even Mike Gamble, in another one of his Twitter posts, said, did you notice how at the end of the destroy option, they don't put Shepard's name on the plaque? They just hold it there, where in the other two options, they put Shepard's name on the memorial plaque.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just playing games again, and it's kind of irritating both indoctrination theorists and non-indoctrination theorists because they're just toying with us again, and they're not telling us what exactly is going on. In all the prior press conferences, they said we should know by now.
And how you respond to that as someone who has invested so much time in looking at this ending, so much of your own work, in trying to get an ending that will please not only yourself, but the legion of gamers who now follow you and conform to your thought process. How does that essentially make you feel about BioWare and Mass Effect in general?
Frankly, if that's what they're doing, again, aside from the whole indoctrination theory, that's not even relevant anymore to me. Well, I mean, it is, but I mean...
Yes, yeah.
Statement. It's kind of a big slap in the face because they need to be... I know they were going for the artistic integrity. I know they didn't want to have a canon thing, but you kind of need to have a canon ending if they've already said that they want to do another game within the universe, not relating to this storyline. But if the choices Shepard makes at the end of this ending reflect what the rest of the universe will be like, then how can you make a new game when there's 3 different possibilities to jump off of? So again, it's a big slap in the face to the players by giving us a non-definitive ending after they spent all this time telling us that they were going to, when in fact all this DLC, or EC DLC delivered was a cutscene or 2 plus a montage. It's kind of, that's why I said it's the same thing plus sprinkles now. That's really how I feel about it. I mean, again, we'll have to wait and see about the indoctrination theory, but until then, I say to the fans, do something else and forget about BioWare until they give you the answers that you deserve, indoctrination theory or not.
All right, now does that mean we can't look forward to another Julian Kluk Part 3 Indoctrination Theory documentary video?
Oh no, there will be. I'm definitely doing an analysis of it, but I think that's where it's going to end unless they announce some new DLC in the coming months or something, which I think is very possible because, again, we were talking before about money pits and stuff, so why wouldn't they want to come up with a new DLC, maybe to a paid DLC?
Yes.
People who are still unhappy with it and make some money at the same time. But yeah, I will be doing a part 3 more or less, or if you want to call it an extended cut analysis video, an official one. I've got a sort of a vlog response to it that just finished uploading a minute ago, and that's not the official one in case anybody's watched that. I'm going to be doing a full-on documentary-styled one again. The problem is I want to wait a few weeks to see and kind of examine what BioWare is going to do before I go making that, because for all I know, they could come out with a big announcement a week after I make it. So I'm going to hold off for maybe a week or 2 and then start working on it to see how they act. So.
All right, really looking forward to that. That, again, is Julian Kluk from clebernoob.com. All the mentioned content in this interview will be available in the links below. If you have any questions for Julian, make sure you head over to clebernoob.com and watch his videos, get involved, and let your voice be heard. I'm Andy Borkowski from Video Game Sophistry. Thanks again, Julian, for talking to us today.
Thanks for having me, Andy.
Wonderful. You have a great day.